Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that cuts through the noise and really delivers the essential insights you need.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a domain that, well, it touches everything. National security, critical infrastructure, our digital lives. I mean, the ever-present world of cyber threats.
Well, it's constantly shifting.
Exactly. It's definitely not just about, putting up firewalls anymore. We're talking about a pretty dynamic digital battleground. The lines between defense and offense are getting really blurry.
Absolutely.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this fascinating idea of active cyber defense. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, what are we really talking about here?
Right. From something called defense with a twist to that really debated concept of hacking back, we'll look at how nations like the US, Israel, and Germany are trying to navigate this super complex, high-stakes landscape.
And our insights, they come from a few places. There's a big comparative study looking at exactly those three countries, US, Israel, Germany, and their approaches. Plus, we've pulled from recent reports on Israel's specific cybersecurity strategy as it evolves, a wider look at the cyber geopolitics in the Middle East, and also the role of bodies like CFIUS in the U.S., that's the Committee on Foreign Investment.
Got it. So a solid base of sources.
Definitely. The goal is to pull out the key nuggets, give you that shortcut to understanding what's going on, maybe with a few surprising bits and practical takeaways.
And we can bring you all these critical insights thanks to our sponsor, really dedicated to connecting folks with leading cybersecurity solutions. So if you're a CISO listening or you're involved in securing your organization, they are a fantastic resource to check out.
A very relevant sponsor for today's topic.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this term first. Active cyber defense. What is it at its core?
Well, fundamentally, it refers to countermeasures that are deployed below the threshold of actual armed conflict. So we're not talking cyber war necessarily.
Right, it's pre-conflict action.
Exactly. And the main goals are usually twofold. Either to actively defend against an ongoing cyber operation or to figure out who's behind it attribution. It's about being proactive, not just, sitting back and waiting.
Okay, proactive defense. And you mentioned categories.
Yeah, we can sort of break it down. The first one is what the source is called defense with a twist. This isn't your standard IT security toolkit.
How so?
It's about using security tools, but in a much more active, sometimes even invasive way to get ahead of threats.
Okay, so instead of just building walls, we're maybe setting traps. What does that actually look like?
Think of things like honeypots. These are basically decoy systems. You set them up to look attractive to attackers, lure them in, and then you can study their methods, gather intelligence.
Ah, okay. Learning from the enemy, essentially.
Pretty much. Or another technique is sinkholing. That's where you redirect malicious traffic away from the real targets, maybe toward servers you control. But maybe the best example to illustrate this twist is something called a canary token.
A canary token? Okay, that definitely sounds intriguing. Like the canary in the coal mine.
Sort of, yeah. It's quite clever, actually. A canary token is basically a little piece of software, like an addendum you might attach to a file, or maybe a user account.
Okay.
And it's designed so that if it's triggered, say, someone copies the file, it's attached to it, performs a predefined action, it could just send an alert, like, hey, someone accessed this sensitive file.
An instant alarm bell.
Right, which helps track the attacker.
Yeah.
But in, let's say, more aggressive versions, if that token gets copied onto the attacker's own system, it could potentially even trigger something like a data wipe on their machine.
Wow. Okay. So that's definitely not passive. That's actively engaging, maybe even disrupting the attacker directly.
Exactly. It blues the line. It's active engagement.
Which brings us to the even more aggressive side, hacking back. That term alone sounds, well, legally and ethically complicated.
Oh, it absolutely is. Hacking back refers to using offensive cyber capabilities directly to counter an attack. There's a huge debate around its legality, its ethics, especially when you talk about the private sector doing it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Vigilante justice in cyberspace.
That's the worry for many. It raises really difficult questions about who has the authority, jurisdiction, and the huge risk of things escalating unintentionally.
Okay. And the U.S. has its own specific terms for these kinds of advanced postures, right? I think the sources mentioned persistent engagement and defending forward.
That's right. Those are central concepts in the U.S. Department of Defense's cyber strategy. Persistent engagement stems from the idea that cyberspace is just inherently fluid and interconnected.
Meaning you can't just defend your own little corner.
Precisely. You have to be constantly active, constantly contesting malicious actors out there on the cyber domain because they're always operating.
Okay. Constant vigilance, constant action. And defending forward, how does that differ?
Defending forward takes it a step further. It means acting as close as possible to where the adversary activity is originating. The goal is to disrupt them at the source, stop them before they can even launch an attack against your networks.
Like stopping the archer before they release the arrow.
Exactly. A common analogy used is kicking the knife out of the hand of an attacker. A pretty vivid image.
It is. Is there a real-world example of this?
Yes, the study points to the U.S. operation back in November 2018 against the Russian Internet Research Agency, the IRA. The goal was to disrupt their ability to spread election-related disinformation. They were actively interfering with the IRA's capabilities at the source.
Right, taking the fight to them, so to speak.
And General Paul Nakasone, who led U.S. Cyber Command, famously said something like, "If we are only operating in blue space, we have failed."
Blue space being our own networks, our friendly territory.
Correct. So he's clearly implying you have to operate out there in red space, which is adversary-controlled territory, and even in gray space.
Gray space.
Yeah, the rest is cyberspace. Routers maybe in Nairobi, servers sitting in Denmark. It underlines that this is a truly global field of operations.
A constant contest playing out everywhere online. Okay, so with those concepts, defense with a twist, hacking back, persistent engagement, defending forward, let's look at how different countries actually put this stuff into practice. Starting with Germany, they seem to be on the more cautious end of the spectrum.
Very much so. Germany's approach is really shaped by its history. They have this strong anti-military and anti-surveillance culture, deeply focused on data security and privacy.
And groups like the Chaos Computer Club have a big voice there, right? Pushing back against government surveillance.
Absolutely. They and others have been very influential in shaping public opinion and policy against widespread surveillance or offensive cyber use by the state.
But didn't something shift things? The sources mentioned that 2015 cyber operation against the German parliament, the Bundestag, contributed to Russia, I think.
Yes, that was a significant event. Even though they apparently contained the attack, it created a powerful narrative for the military and security agencies to argue for more cyber powers.
A justification for beefing up capabilities.
Right. And following that, Germany's 2016 cybersecurity strategy did start to include specific references to offensive cyber capabilities and deterrence, which was a shift.
But it's still a struggle internally. I gather there's proposed legislation from 2019 that would allow defense with a twist and maybe even hacking back, but it's facing pushback.
Huge pushback. From privacy advocates, legal experts, even reportedly criticism from within the government, like the Ministry of Justice, it's very likely heading for constitutional challenges if they push it through.
So Germany's really wrestling with this.
It really highlights this internal conflict. Their official foreign policy promotes norms and stability in cyberspace. And there's a strong argument internally that, look, every hour, every euro spent developing offensive tools is one less spent on actually strengthening defenses. It's a very value-driven, cautious approach compared to others.
Okay, so Germany is cautious. Let's pivot then to a nation known for being, well, the opposite, Israel. Very proactive.
Oh, completely different world. Israel is undoubtedly a global leader in cybersecurity, both in innovation and, frankly, in their willingness to use active defense, including hacking back when they deem it necessary.
What drives that? What makes their ecosystem so effective?
It's a combination of things. A really strong high-tech innovation culture, very close collaboration between the government, the military, and the private sector, and this incredible pipeline of talent coming out of elite military cyber units.
Like the famous Unit 8200.
Exactly. People get amazing training and experience there, then often move into startups or established tech companies, creating this constant cycle of innovation and expertise flowing back and forth.
And they're building something called a cyber iron dome. That name is obviously chosen for a reason.
It absolutely is. It draws that direct parallel to their physical Iron Dome missile defense. The idea is to build a multi-layered, very dynamic and proactive cyber defense system. And a key part of this is using automated AI-based systems to detect and respond to threats much faster.
When did this concept really gain traction?
The sources point to the 2014 Gaza conflict, Operation Protective Edge. Israel apparently faced really large-scale cyber attacks during that time. And afterwards, Prime Minister Netanyahu actually declared cyber attacks as one of the country's top 4 main threats that really focus minds.
So it became a top national security priority. What are the main ideas behind their current national cybersecurity strategy looking out towards 2028?
Their overall vision is pretty clear. A trustworthy, available, and safe digital space for Israel. And this rests on a few key principles. First, active defense being proactive, early detection, preemptive disruption.
Okay, so acting first.
Then joint security. This means it's a whole-of-society effort, government, private sector, academia, even friendly countries working together. Third is resilience and crisis readiness, so anticipating digital crises and being able to recover quickly.
Planning for the worst.
And finally, leveraging innovation and technological excellence. That's where things like AI and that cyberdome concept really come into play. It's about staying ahead technologically.
And the more recent conflict, the Iron Sword situation after the October 7th attack, I imagine that's only reinforced the need for digital preparedness, especially for what they call strategic surprises.
Without a doubt, it underscored that need dramatically. And practically, you see them taking steps like boosting public awareness. They have a 119 hotline for reporting cyber incidents, and the number of reports apparently jumped massively from about 9,000 in 2022 to over 17,000 just this year.
Wow. So people are becoming more vigilant.
Yes. They're also trying to motivate businesses, things like cyber insurance incentives, maybe a government resilience badge to show you meet certain standards. Plus, a heavy focus on securing critical infrastructure, supply chains, and fighting foreign influence campaigns online.
A very comprehensive, proactive posture. Okay, so that brings us to the United States. We talked about persistent engagement and defending forward. But there's also this internal debate in the U.S. about the private sector, right? Should companies be allowed to hack back?
Yes, that debate is very active. There's legislation that's been proposed called the Active Cyber Defense Certainty Act, or ACDC. Its goal is essentially to provide legal clarity, maybe even legitimacy, for certain private sector active defense measures, potentially including some forms of hackback.
And how's that being received?
It's definitely got a mixed reception. Some in the private sector argue they need the ability to actively defend themselves beyond their own network boundaries. Others, including many security experts and former government officials, argue that offensive actions should stay strictly with the government because of the risks of escalation and unintended consequences. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, very tricky. Now, the U.S. has another tool that plays a big role in national security, especially where tech and foreign influence intersect. CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
Right. CFIUS is really important here. It's this interagency committee that has the power to review foreign investments into U.S. companies specifically for national security risks.
And its powers have grown recently.
Significantly, especially since 2018 with the FIRMA legislation. CFIUS can now review even non-controlling investments if they involve critical technology, critical infrastructure, or sensitive personal data. There's definitely increased scrutiny, particularly, though not exclusively, on investments coming from certain countries like China.
So it's not just about who owns the company anymore. Even a minority stake could trigger a review if it's in a sensitive sector.
Exactly. And President Biden put out an executive order in 2022 that made the criteria even sharper. It explicitly directed CFIUS to focus on things like supply chain resilience, maintaining U.S. leadership in key technologies like AI and biotech, overall investment trends in certain industries, and, very relevant to our discussion, cybersecurity risks associated with an investment.
Okay, so cybersecurity is explicitly on their checklist now.
Absolutely. And also the security of Americans' sensitive personal data.
So if CFIUS reviews a deal and finds potential national security risks, what can they actually do? Can they just block the deal?
They can recommend blocking it, yes, or force a divestment. But often, they'll negotiate mitigation measures. These could include things like prohibiting the foreign investor from accessing certain intellectual property, setting up independent monitors, requiring specific cybersecurity standards, ensuring only vetted U.S. personnel handle sensitive contracts, maybe even requiring networks to be physically separate, or facilities to be located only in the U.S.
So quite a range of controls they can impose.
Definitely. And the key takeaway is that CFIUS explicitly considers cybersecurity vulnerabilities that a foreign investor might exploit, or the potential for manipulating supply chains, as potential adverse effects on U.S. national security. Intelligence assessments also regularly warn that foreign governments are, quote, extremely likely to use espionage and investment as pathways to get critical U.S. tech. CFIUS is a major gatekeeper against that.
It really highlights how intertwined economic investment and national security, especially cybersecurity, have become. And managing those risks is crucial. Which, again, ties back to our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com. They provide resources for businesses trying to navigate exactly these kinds of complex cybersecurity challenges and find the right solutions.
A very necessary service in today's environment.
Absolutely. So zooming out a bit, looking at the bigger picture, the geopolitics of all this, it feels like the cyber domain really messes with traditional ideas of deterrence.
It really does. Attribution is a huge problem. Figuring out definitively who launched an attack can be incredibly difficult. And the norms of what's acceptable behavior are still very much under development internationally.
Yeah, the rules of the road are still being written.
And cyber offers what some call cheap haddock. You can cause significant disruption, potentially, with relatively low political or economic costs compared to, say, traditional military action. Iran, for instance, is highlighted in the sources as a significant cyber player.
Both launching attacks and being targeted, right?
Exactly. They've sponsored, I think the number was 19 publicly known offensive operations since 2010, but they've also been on the receiving end of about 18. Their own capabilities really ramped up, particularly after they were hit by Stuxnet years ago.
And they often use proxies, don't they? Groups like Cyber Hezbollah. That must make attribution even harder.
Oh, absolutely. Using proxies, whether loosely affiliated or tightly controlled, adds layers of deniability and complexity. It makes it harder to assign state responsibility and increases the risk of miscalculation or unintended escalation if a proxy goes off script.
Meanwhile, other countries in the region, like in the Gulf UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they're building up their defenses too.
Yes, definitely. As these Gulf Cooperation Council states digitize rapidly, they realize their vulnerability is increasing. So they're investing heavily in cyber defense, often by bringing in international expertise, forming strategic partnerships, and outsourcing capabilities.
Which really underscores the need for international cooperation, doesn't it? If threats are global and often state-sponsored or state-condoned, it's absolutely critical. You see this with Israel, for example. They maintain very deep cybersecurity partnerships with the U.S. and other leading nations. They're active in international forums trying to shape norms. And interestingly, the sources mention a joint platform called Crystal Ball being developed by Israel and the UAE.
Really? Israel and the UAE?
Yes, specifically to share information about ransomware incidents as part of the broader U.S.-led counter-ransomware initiative. It shows that even in complex geopolitical regions, shared cyber threats can drive cooperation. Because ultimately, these threats don't respect borders.
That's a fascinating example. So bringing it all together from this deep dive, it's clear active cyber defense isn't one single thing. It's this really dynamic, multi-layered approach.
Right, and nations are all trying to find their balance, balancing proactive steps, the legal and ethical frameworks, driving innovation, all while being more interconnected than ever. We've seen the spectrum, really, from Germany's very cautious, value-driven approach to Israel's highly proactive, tech-focused cyberdome, and the U.S. strategy of defending forward while wrestling with the role of the private sector. Everyone's grappling with this new digital frontier.
And if you look at the bigger picture, what really stands out, I think, is how much a nation's core security doctrine and its defense culture shapes its specific cyber strategy. You see it clearly in the differences between Germany, Israel, and the U.S.
That's a great point. Culture really matters here.
And the other major theme is just how vital that collaboration is, not just internationally, but domestically between governments and the private sector. Protecting critical infrastructure, securing supply chains. It's not something government can do alone. It has to be a joint effort.
A whole-of-society approach, as Israel puts it, which leads to maybe a final provocative thought for our listeners to chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, we talked about AI being part of Israel's cyberdome, potentially offering powerful new defense tools. But AI itself is advancing incredibly rapidly. As it gets more powerful, doesn't it also create entirely new vulnerabilities, new attack surfaces that adversaries could potentially exploit?
That's the double-edged sword, isn't it? AI for defense, but also AI as a target, or even AI used for attacks.
Exactly. So how are nations going to balance harnessing the immense benefits of AI for cyber defense against the absolute imperative to secure these incredibly complex AI systems themselves? And what kind of unexpected, maybe digital strategic surprises might emerge from that evolving landscape? Something to think about.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. The pace of change is just incredible.
It really is. And this whole deep dive just reinforces the urgent need for robust cybersecurity across the board. So if you are a CISO, if you're involved in securing your organization's digital future, remember that finding the right tools, the right expertise is absolutely paramount. Do explore how our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com, can connect you with the technologies and services needed to stay ahead in this constantly shifting threat landscape.
Good advice.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. We really hope you gain some valuable insights into the complex world of active cyber defense. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.